Thank you for joining us for the Pre-Convention Education webinar. I'm Kristen Palmziano, Collegiate National Vice President.
I'm Catherine Onishko, Alumni National Vice President.
And I'm Jenny Kemery, Alumni National Vice President.
I will provide an overview of the presentation. Then Jenny will discuss the submission process for proposed amendments. Next, Jenny will discuss the process for voting on these proposals. Jenny will also give some tips for reviewing the proposals. Then Catherine will walk through a proposed amendment and discuss what you will find where as you review the proposals. Finally, I will discuss the next steps convention goers should take in order to properly prepare for convention.
The goal of the Alpha Sigma Tau National Convention is to impart an unwavering enthusiasm, pride, and affinity for the Alpha Sigma Tau experience into the hearts and minds of all who participate. In addition to opportunities to forge connections with sisters, the convention allows members to recognize other members for their accomplishments and conduct business of the sorority. The purpose of this presentation is to provide background information for delegates as they prepare for convention. Convention attendees may find it helpful to have an overview of the procedure for voting on changes to our governing documents. Each voting delegate has the responsibility to carefully consider each proposed amendment prior to voting. To ensure you are prepared for convention, you will need to have an understanding of the following: which members are eligible to vote at convention, the timeline for proposing changes to the governing documents, and how to read and understand proposals. We are voting on changes to the governing documents. These changes were submitted to the Governing Documents Committee starting in the fall of 2017 with a January 15, 2018 deadline. The Governing Documents Committee vetted the proposals and released their report on March 1, 2018. This report is available on the convention website. Voting will take place during convention. Voting delegates include collegiate chapter leaders, alumni association chapter representatives, chapter advisory board members, volunteer personnel, standing committee chairs, past national presidents, and national officers. Later, we will discuss tips for selecting your delegate for a collegiate or alumni chapter or chapter advisory board. In addition to voting members, other individuals such as our national parliamentarian will be present to guide the convention body through the process. The governing documents, such as the standing rules and bylaws, are the policies of Alpha Sigma Tau. Members and groups may submit proposed changes for consideration by the convention voting body. National Council also proposes changes based on the needs and risks identified. Part of the National Council's job is to live in the governing documents. The National Council has a duty to make necessary changes to best position Alpha Sigma Tau for future success. For example, National Council has focused on ensuring that our national committees are high-performing committees. The National Council and previous councils have identified gaps in the current committee structure and have discussed various ideas for change. But those ideas provided only the view of the National Council. Therefore, the National Council appointed an outside group of alumni and collegiate members with various experiences in the organization to analyze our current environment as it relates to our standing committees. The task force committee's report provided an unbiased opinion on the national organization's structure as it relates to standing committees. The National Council is committed to ensuring that the organization is moving in the appropriate direction that supports the future needs of Alpha Sigma Tau. Although proposed amendments may be voted on in the form they have been released to the membership in the March 2018 report, there is the possibility that changes may be made on the convention floor. Voting members who have read the proposed amendments in advance are in the best position to consider proposed changes and vote in the best interest of Alpha Sigma Tau.
Now that we've discussed voting, let's discuss the next steps delegates should consider. First, delegates should read each proposed change and its rationale. The Governing Documents Committee's report can be found on the convention website. Proposals can be found within AST Connect. You should note that the convention website has other helpful information about convention, and all attendees should visit the site. Let's now turn to breaking down a proposal. Let's take a look at Proposal 5, for example. First, you have the motion. For this proposal, the motion is to amend our bylaws by striking the role of the alternate nominations committee members, as well as increasing the size of the nominations committee, and revising the timeline to declare a candidacy for the nominations committee from the floor. It'll change the timeline, if passed, from 7 days to 90 days. Next, you have the rationale. The rationale was drafted by the submitter of the proposal. This rationale takes place across a few pages and lists several reasons why the proposers think that this amendment should pass. One reason in particular here is that our nominations committee requires alternates to be as actively engaged as members of the nominations committee, and the term alternate does not correctly describe the expectations of the position. Following the rationale, the next section shows the governing documents as they currently stand. In the middle column, you have the proposed change, striking out or adding what should be stricken or added. And then finally, on the right side, you have how the governing documents will read should this amendment pass. Finally, you have the list of submitters. This proposal was submitted by the National Council and by Shauna Jackson, the current nominations committee chair.
Now that we've discussed where the changes can be found and gone through an example, let's talk about a few more steps for preparing for convention. Next, decide who the voting delegate is. Each collegiate chapter is expected to send one delegate and one alternate delegate. Each chapter advisory board, alumni chapter, and alumni association is also expected to select a delegate. Typically, chapter presidents serve as the delegate, another executive committee officer serves as the alternate delegate, and the chapter advisor serves as the chapter advisory board delegate. However, we realize this isn't always possible and encourage each chapter to select the best members to represent them at convention. After a chapter has selected their voting delegate, the chapter should talk with their fellow sisters. This includes your chapter members, advisory board, alumni chapter members, and other AST members. Remember that proposed amendments can change on the floor, and the revision you will be voting on may not be identical to what was discussed with your sisters. Your obligation is to always act in the best interest of the long-term success and health of Alpha Sigma Tau. Finally, the National Council will be hosting town halls to answer questions regarding the proposals they submitted. If you have any questions, you may want to attend.
Thank you for participating, and we look forward to seeing you in Pittsburgh.